There was a time, not so long ago, when the dream of the average man was simple but profound. A steady job, a modest house, a loyal wife, and maybe a couple of kids playing in the backyard. It wasn't about luxury. It was about stability, about meaning, about building something of your own. That dream anchored men through wars, recessions, and revolutions. It gave them purpose, something to strive for beyond just survival. But today, the horizon looks different. Now, the dream seems to drift farther away with each passing year. The price of a home has soared beyond reach. Relationships are more fragile than ever, and the path once paved with hope has become tangled in loneliness and debt. It's easy to feel disheartened. It's easy to believe that the game is rigged, that only the elites, those born into power, wealth, or fame can enjoy the spoils of life. But I want to remind you of a fundamental truth. No system, no economy, no elite, no government has ever been able to extinguish the fire of a determined man. When the world shuts one door, the men who rise above don't sit and cry, they build their own door. Let me take you back over 2,000 years ago to a man who lived in an era without skyscrapers, cars, or internet. Archimedes, a name most recognized from school, yet few truly understand the depth of his story. He was an average man in the sense that he was not born into ruling power. He wasn't a king or a general. He was just a curious soul in ancient Greece, fascinated by the principles of the world around him. While others feasted or fought, Archimedes immersed himself in water, in sand, in thought. One day, while sitting in his bath, Archimedes noticed the water level rise as he lowered his body into it. That simple observation led to one of the most fundamental principles of physics: buoyancy. He leapt from the bath and ran naked through the streets yelling, "Eureka! I found it!" That moment became legend. But it wasn't just about discovering a law of nature. It was about how the spark of brilliance, determination, and deep observation could change the world even if you were just an average man in an average home with an average life. Archimedes went on to create ingenious war machines that defended his city, Syracuse, against the mighty Roman Empire. He engineered screw pumps for irrigation, invented compound pulleys, and laid the groundwork for hydrostatics and mechanics. That would influence thinkers centuries later. He didn't have a LinkedIn profile or a stock portfolio. He had his mind, his curiosity, and his grit. That's what made him great. Now let's return to today. The world around us is not short of challenges. Housing prices rise while wages stagnate. Love seems filtered through apps and driven by algorithms. Debt is marketed like candy, and loneliness is an epidemic. The average man is told he's irrelevant. He is mocked in media, forgotten by institutions, and blamed for problems he didn't create. But here's the truth. Being average doesn't mean being powerless. It just means you haven't been awakened yet. The system is not built for you to succeed. It never was. But history tells us that's not a death sentence. In fact, some of the greatest men in history were born in obscurity, suffered rejection, were told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or rich enough, and they proved the world wrong. If Archimedes could shake the foundations of science with nothing but a bathtub and a spark of thought, then what's stopping you? You don't need $1 million to make a difference. You don't need perfect circumstances to change your life. What you need is a shift in mindset. The average man today is told to be content with survival. But you were not born to merely survive. You were born to grow, to build, to overcome. Yes, the odds are stacked. But the beauty of adversity is that it reveals who you truly are. When life offers you little, it's not the time to quit, it's the time to rise. Because the man who has nothing to lose is often the one who has the clearest path to greatness. You can't lose what you don't have, but you can fight for what you deserve. So when the world tells you that a wife and a house are out of reach, don't swallow the lie. Understand that those things were never meant to be handed out like trophies. They are earned through character, purpose, and resilience. We are entering An age where the values that once defined manhood are under siege. Responsibility is mocked. Commitment is seen as weakness. Building a family is dismissed as outdated. But the truth is those very things are what elevate a man above mediocrity. The elites may have money, but they often lack soul. And the soul of a man cannot be bought. Ask yourself this: are you happy to be average? Are you content to drift through life invisible, unheard, waiting for scraps? Or will you be the one who defies the script, who rewrites the story, who fights back with grit, honor, and intelligence? You may not change the world overnight, but you can start by changing your world today. It begins with discipline. It begins with showing up for yourself when no one else will. It begins by looking in the mirror and saying, they won't hand me the life I want, so I will build it myself, brick by brick, thought by thought, action by action. The average man is not dead. He is dormant. He is waiting for a spark. Be that spark. You have more power than you've been told, more strength than you believe, and more potential than you've dared to unlock. Let Archimedes remind you, even in the most mundane moments like sitting in a bath, the seeds of greatness can sprout. But only if you're paying attention, only if you're willing to question the world around you and push against the current. You are not a statistic. You are not a failure. You are not a product of your environment. You are a force waiting to be unleashed. But the first step is to believe not in the world but in yourself. So let's dive deeper. What does it really mean to be average in today's world? It means you're carrying away expectations, comparisons, disappointment. You're told to chase success, but the finish line keeps moving. You work longer hours but can't afford a home. You try to build connections but genuine relationships feel harder to come by. And slowly, day by day, that fire inside starts to flicker. It feels like you're drowning in a sea of noise, watching others succeed while you struggle just to keep your head above water. But this isn't the first time men have faced this kind of storm. Every era has its crisis. Every generation has its walls to climb. What separates those who make history from those who become forgotten is one word: resilience. Resilience is not given. It is forged in the silence of lonely nights, in the grind of unpaid work, in the heartbreak of betrayal, in the hunger for more. The average man who becomes extraordinary is not the one with fewer scars, but the one who turns those scars into a map forward. Take the story of Howard Schultz, born in a Brooklyn housing project, raised by a truck driver father who never caught a break. He didn't come from money or prestige. No golden spoon, no elite connections. What he did have was vision. As a young man, he worked as a bartender, then sold coffee machines for a living. One day, he stepped into a little coffee shop in Seattle called Starbucks. Back then, it sold beans, not lattes. But Schultz saw more. He saw culture, conversation, community. He believed that a cup of coffee could be more than a beverage. It could be an experience. And so, he took a risk. People laughed. They said no one would pay $4 for coffee. They called him delusional, unrealistic. But he had something the average man today desperately needs: belief in his own ideas. He didn't wait for permission. He acted. Today, Starbucks has over 30,000 locations in more than 80 countries. Schultz, the son of a truck driver, became a billionaire not just in wealth, but in impact. He didn't break through because the world made it easy. He broke through because he refused to be limited by what the world expected of him. That's the lesson. Being average is not a life sentence. It's a starting line. What you do from here is what matters. And yes, life feels different now. The world has changed. But your capacity to shape it hasn't. The tools have evolved. So must you. Social media might make others look like they're winning every second. But remember, comparison is the thief of joy. While you're watching someone else's highlight reel, your own story is waiting to be written. If you're in debt, start learning how money works. If you feel isolated, Build community one handshake at a time. If you feel lost, read. Read like your life depends on it. Because sometimes the answers you need have already been written, waiting in the pages of someone else's struggle. Discipline doesn't cost money. Learning doesn't require permission. Effort doesn't ask for privilege. And these three disciplines, knowledge and effort, can carry any man through the storm. You might say, but I don't have anyone who believes in me. That's okay. You don't need the world to believe in you. You can start with just yourself. That one belief is enough to spark a revolution. Revolutions never start in crowds. They start in silence, in solitude, in the heart of one person who refuses to accept defeat. Remember the story of Archimedes? His breakthrough didn't happen in a grand palace or lecture hall. It happened in a bathtub, because his mind was trained to see opportunity where others saw nothing. That's what you need to cultivate. The ability to really see the world around you. The courage to ask, why not me? Instead of, why me? Because the modern world wants you distracted. It wants you numb, passive, endlessly scrolling, comparing, and doubting. But every second you spend in self-doubt is a second stolen from your legacy. Your legacy. And you, yes you, have a legacy to write. Maybe you won't become a scientist like Archimedes or a billionaire like Schultz. But maybe you'll become the father your children admire, the husband your wife respects, the man your community counts on. Maybe you'll be the one who breaks the cycle of addiction, poverty, or apathy in your family. And let me tell you, there is no average in that. The reason so many men feel empty today is not because the world is harder. It's because we've forgotten how to fight with purpose. We've become addicted to comfort, allergic to discomfort, and blind to the long game. But comfort doesn't build character. Struggle does. So if you're broke good, that means you've got firewood ready to burn. If you're alone good, that means it's your voice you'll hear first when you finally decide to rise. If you're tired good, that means you've been carrying weight. Now build the muscle to lift more. Stop waiting for a savior. You are the one you've been waiting for. There is no rescue mission coming. There is only the decision you make today. To grow, to rise, to fight. Not against others, but for yourself. The elites may own more land, more stocks, more companies. But they do not own more soul, more purpose, or more will unless you give it to them. And when a man refuses to surrender those things, when he wakes up and chooses to build, to endure, and to lead, then he becomes truly unstoppable. Average is a label. You were not born with it. You were taught it. But the same mind that learned to accept that label can unlearn it. You don't need permission to become more. You just need a reason. And if your reason is that you're tired of being forgotten, tired of being ignored, tired of being underestimated, then good. That's your fire. Use it. Because buried in every so-called average man is a story worth telling, a life worth living, and a fight worth fighting. You are not invisible. You are not defeated. You are just getting started. Let's talk about what happens when the average man refuses to stay average. What does that transformation look like? It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a viral moment. It's a decision quiet, often lonely, but powerful. It begins the moment you say, enough. Enough of the excuses. Enough of the waiting. Enough of the belief that greatness is for someone else. That moment of awakening is not marked by fanfare. It's marked by action. You get up earlier, not to prove something to the world, but to reclaim your hours. You stop spending your weekends, numbing your pain, and start investing them into your purpose. You stop chasing applause and start chasing excellence. That is how the tides turn. That is how you go from forgotten to unstoppable. Let me tell you something that no one wants to admit. The world is not fair. The playing field is not level. And it may never be. But you do not need fairness to succeed. You need focus. You need obsession. You need clarity. Most people drift through life reacting. But the men who truly rise, are the ones who move with intention. They don't complain about the storm, they become the storm. Think of every great man you admire. None of them had an easy path. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. Abraham Lincoln lost multiple elections before becoming one. Of the greatest presidents in history, do you think these men had perfect conditions? Do you think they waited for the world to hand them a golden ticket? No. They did what you must now do. They took pain and turned it into power. They turned rejection into fuel. They looked at the mountain and started climbing, not because it was easy, but because the summit meant something. Because the climb forged them into something new. You might not have the money for a house today. You might not have the love of your life. You might feel behind. But understand this, delay is not defeat. Just because your victory hasn't come, yet doesn't mean it's not on the way. And the reason most people never taste greatness is because they quit at the 95-yard line. They stop when the breakthrough is one more step away. But not you. You will not be one of those men. You are not made of the same material as those who fold. You are made of fire, stone, and will. And it's time to remember that. The average man today has been robbed of belief. He's been told he's toxic, lazy, unwanted. But the truth is, this world still needs builders. It still needs protectors. It still needs visionaries. And if you don't step into that role, who will? You have a choice. Settle or strive. You can choose mediocrity, comfort, and a quiet decline. Or you can choose growth, pain, and a legacy that echoes long after you're gone. No one can make that decision for you. But I promise you this, choosing the hard road will reveal strength you never knew you had. There will be days when you feel alone, days when the grind feels pointless, days when doubt creeps in like poison. That's normal. That's the test. But it is in those moments when no one is watching, when no one is cheering, that greatness is built. You show up, you endure, you push through, and little by little you rise. Let the elites have their castles. Let them sit on their mountains. You're not chasing their lifestyle, you're building your own. One forged in discipline, purpose, and relentless work. One they could never understand. Because while they inherited their empires, you will build yours, and that is infinitely more powerful. Remember Archimedes? He wasn't just a thinker, he was a warrior of the mind. He once said, "Give me a place to stand, and I will move the earth." That is not just science, it's a metaphor for life. You don't need the whole world to support you. You just need a foothold, a reason to fight, a dream worth the effort, a foundation no one else can see. From that, you move mountains. So let me ask you again, are you happy to be average? Or will you rise not in rebellion against the system, but in rebellion against your old self? Will you stay quiet, or will you become a voice that others follow? Will you accept the life you were given, or will you create the life you were meant to live? It starts now, not tomorrow, not next month. Now, this second, because time is not your friend. Time waits for no man. Every day you hesitate is a day lost. But every day you take a step forward, even a small one, is a day won. Build your body. Sharpen your mind, protect your spirit, speak with purpose, walk with power, and never apologize for wanting more. Because there is honor in ambition, there is nobility in the struggle, and there is freedom in forging your own path, even when the world tells you it's impossible. The average man is not dead. He is evolving. He is remembering who he was before the world dulled his fire. He is waking up, and he is you. So rise. Rise with fury. Rise with purpose. Rise like a man who knows his value, even if no one else sees it yet. Because one day, the world will look back and wonder how you did it. How you escaped the trap. How you broke the mold. How you transformed from overlooked to unstoppable. And you will smile. Not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. Be bold. Be relentless. Be the man you were always meant to be. The average man no longer accepts his fate. He rewrites it. And starting today, so will you. Will you?